So hello everybody and welcome to the webinar Is Business Analysis for Me? I'm Yulia and I will be your host for today. The reason I'm holding this webinars is I just wanted to share more with the community about why I love business analysis and why I wrote a book about it. So I've been a business analyst for many years. I moved on to be a business architect. I manage the business analysis team, business architecture team. Right now, I have my own consulting business. It's called Why Change Consulting. And also, I will be teaching at Humber College a business analytics course. So this is a little bit about me. And then this is my book, Business Analyst, A Profession and a Mindset. So materials of today will be using some of those that I've used in my book and more. And if you are interested, you can find this book on Amazon and on Kobo. So here's the agenda for today. We will talk about what is business analysis, what do business analysts do all day, what are the typical job responsibilities, knowledge and skills that you need to have to be successful, the types of companies that hire business analysts, and then really we will try to answer this question, is business analysis for you? Would you enjoy doing it? So let's get started. And we should really get started with business because the business analyst has word business in it for a reason. So what is business? So let's imagine any organization or company or corporation that has some inputs and materials and resources that it converts to outputs and value for the customers. It's always about customer, and we have to always think of a business in these terms. What is the value that this business is giving to the customer? And perhaps in exchange for revenue, because otherwise the business will not be able to function. Now, those businesses are going to have problems. There may be a problem with the customers being unhappy, or you're losing a certain segment of customers, or your processes are not very efficient. Whatever it may be, problem needs to be analyzed and then it needs to be solved. So business analysis is really a practice of analyzing business problems with a goal to find solutions to them. When do we need business analysis? Anytime your organization or enterprise is undergoing a change, someone needs to analyze why this change needs to be done, what needs to happen, and how to make this change most efficient. So here you see just some of the examples. Perhaps you have a new product that you want to start selling. Perhaps the legislation changed and you are no longer compliant and you need to change some processes to be compliant. Perhaps your company is being sold or you're purchasing another company and you need to incorporate that new part of business into your larger organization. You may be modernizing your technology, you may be changing the business model, restructuring the organization. Really, for all of these different reasons, every time your enterprise is undergoing a change, you will need some business analysis and you will benefit from doing business analysis activities because one of those goals is to make the change more efficient, to facilitate the change. What is change anyway? Let's define it. We will define it by talking first about the current state. And in the current state, this is where organization is today. Its processes, its functions, its organization, and its problems today. And then there is a future state. Where does the organization need to go? And when we look at the gap from current state to future state, that's the change. That's what we need to do to achieve this future state. And when we define the change, what we are really doing is defining requirements. So what are business requirements then? So if you think of our current state, which is where we are today, and the future state where we want to be, and this change, the transition, that's the solution that will take us to future state. So the details of this solution, what exactly we need to do to get from current state to future state, that's what business requirements are. So the definition is that these are features and capabilities needed to solve a business problem or satisfy a business need. So before we go into more details, I wanted just to mention this, and I'll keep coming to this concept over and over. The concept about what is the most important outcome of business analysis. So you may think that, well, defining business requirements is what business analysis is about. And it's true, but it's not all of the truth. It's not enough to define business requirements. For example, when a business analyst puts it in a document or in a backlog, what is most important is to create a shared understanding of these requirements. So all of your stakeholders actually have the same understanding, the same idea about where we are all going. If that understanding isn't there, then your project is not going to be successful. So who is a business analyst? So this is just a little model for you, and it really can be applied to any profession. But what you really see is your business analyst, the foundation for your activities are the knowledge, skills, and tools and techniques of your profession, of your business analysis profession. And we'll talk about some of this today, and also have a separate webinar just focused on tools and techniques. Now, business analysts will use this knowledge and training and tools to do certain business analysis activities, which are part of the business analysis process. And the goal of this process is to deliver something, is to create the deliverables of business analysis. So we'll touch on that as well. Now, the reason you're doing it is you have certain motivations to do a good job, to succeed in your career, to see the project being successful. You're using certain information and your experience. And all of this really is overseen by your mindset, by how you approach problems, by how you are motivated. What are you trying to do? What makes you really put an effort into doing a good job? And this is really your mindset. So when we talk about business analysts, we talk about professionals who are trained to apply business analysis techniques and tools to determine business requirements and to help find solutions to business problems. All right, so let's move on. Anything surprising that I said so far? Anything that you wanted to touch base on? Please feel free to type it in the chat. So here is just a quick recap. So this is webinar number 1 in this series, but I'm repeating it today one more time for people who couldn't join before. I do have a webinar number 2 that focuses on business analysis process, and then number 3 on outcomes and deliverables, and webinar number 4 on tools and techniques. So right now I already have the recording for webinars 3 and 4 on YouTube. So I'll follow up after this webinar, and I will send you the links, but you can go on YouTube and you can watch them if you weren't able to attend. So let's talk about business analysis activities, and plainly speaking, what do those business analysts do all day? So before I go to that slide, if you want to type in the chat, what is it that you do? What are those activities that you can share with others that you find yourself doing every day or quite frequently? So let's just take a minute. What do you do? All right. So I'm going to type here what I do. I do a lot of modeling and visuals that I like to create and add to the requirements. Anybody else? Okay, yes, you can still hear me, right? Okay, yeah. So I can see here, I think there was a delay on our connection. So collecting technical and non-technical requirements from clients, share it with the team. Yes, interviewing stakeholders, doing stakeholder analysis and modeling. Yeah, thank you very much. So let's see, what do business analysts do all day? So really, we can talk about core business analysis activities and non-core. So core are those activities that really are directly impacting your business analysis deliverables. So here are a few examples of what business analysts might do. You interview and shadow business experts, you collect information, you search for it. Sometimes you actually need to investigate. You'll facilitate workshops, interviews, meetings. You will analyze processes. You'll try to create process flow diagrams. You may analyze data. You will learn more about how business works. And then from all of that information, you'll start to capture the requirements, perhaps capture some assumptions. You may be creating models, diagrams, mock-ups, storyboards, and you will be doing a lot of explaining, such as explaining technical details to business and business process to information technology folks. You will be reviewing solution design, test scenarios, and anything else where you need to make sure that the design and the testing and the implementation of the final solution actually matches business requirements and will satisfy what business needed to achieve. And I can see you have been adding to the chat as well. So working on system requirements, providing requirements, ensuring reviews are complete, management of documentation, management of attributes, probably in a requirements management system, and of course a lot of collaborations for sure. So yeah, so all of this, and what it really tells us that in this job you're gonna do a variety of activities. It's actually very interesting and challenging in terms of all the different things you need to do. Now, there are some non-core activities that you may be involved in as well, because as a team member, a business analyst may be helping a project manager or scrum master, or maybe helping out the UAT team. You may be asked to train business users. So you may be involved in project planning and estimating and risk analysis and data analysis, and perhaps running some project meetings or filling in for your team members. And if you have a team of business analysts in your organization, you may be doing peer reviews where you are working with other analysts, sharing your experience perhaps, or doing a review of their requirements to help them out. So a lot of these different activities all day. Now, let's talk about competencies. What is the knowledge and skills and training that business analysts need to do the job? So in here, I'm going to go back to BABOK, to Business Analysis Body of Knowledge, and start off with how BABOK characterizes the main business analysis competencies. And the main categories are really analytical thinking and problem solving, the behavioral characteristics, business knowledge, communication skills, interaction, and tools and technology. So let's chat a little bit about each one of them. So in terms of analytical thinking and problem solving, what exactly does it mean? You will need to analyze root cause of the problems to understand why, for example, a certain process is slow, or this group of customers are unhappy, or why these communications don't seem to achieve the desired result. You may be interpreting and analyzing the data, because the answers to these questions are not always just in the gut knowledge. Sometimes actually you need to go to the data to validate the assumptions or verify certain scenarios. You will be analyzing processes and capturing them in flows. You may be identifying process gaps and proposing improvements. And in general, understanding the complexity of systems, complexity of processes, decomposing them so that you can explain them to others. And as you're doing all of this analysis, also presenting these concepts visually. And visual presentation is extremely important in terms of helping your audience understand this complexity. Let's move on. So the next category is behavior, and how do you behave? How do you interact with people? Starting with taking accountability for the results of your work, encouraging others, using their time efficiently, adapting to personalities, adapting to perhaps different agendas. How you empathize, especially when someone is explaining to them the problem or the pain point. Ability to consider opposing points of view. Sometimes you may have to work with stakeholders who disagree with each other or disagree with you, and how you're able to manage your behavior so that you can handle this conflict constructively and find a resolution. And all of it really amounts to a constructive business analyst mindset, and we'll chat a little bit about it later. In terms of business acumen and knowledge of business, So this is about understanding the industry, understanding the organization that you're working in. What's the market? What do customers want? What are the trends? What are the regulations? Because all of that knowledge also impacts the solutions and will also help you have equal footing interaction with your business stakeholders when you're doing your business analysis. On top of that, of course, organizational knowledge, understanding of different methodologies, and so on. As we talk about communication skills, I can talk about it all day. It's so important. It's such a big part of your success, ability to communicate, especially again, communicate complex concepts. So starting with verbal skills, speaking, explaining, listening, asking questions, but then also listening to the answer. Your written communication, where you are able to express the information in a written way so that someone else who maybe you cannot speak to directly can actually understand the meaning. And all of the nonverbal communication that you need to pay attention to in meetings or in interactions. And by the way, even now with the remote work, you still can get those nonverbal cues through the video or from the chat. And you need to pay attention because this is where you may have some stumbling blocks when you have a resistance or someone is not agreeing with you or is not understanding where you're going to. Interaction skills more about interacting with the groups. So facilitating meetings, leadership, influencing, working with teams. Sometimes you need to be leading the team. Influencing people without authority is a really key one because you very rarely as a business analyst have authority over others, but you have the power of persuasion. You would be using the results of your analysis and your discoveries to persuade someone or to recommend a certain course of action, or perhaps to persuade a business process improvement, as we talked in another workshop. And teaching them and explaining, and all of these different interaction skills are extremely important to your success. All right, so we'll talk just a little about tools and technology, but I wanted to touch base with you on the chat and see out of those skills, perhaps, which one do you think is most important or which one do you think is more difficult for you to master? Like, what is your own experience in terms of skills of business analysis? So what do you think? What are the skills that you find are most important in your particular case, for example, or perhaps a skill that helped you out in a difficult situation? So for me, I would say one of those skills is using data. If I see conflict, for example, if I have two people who disagree with each other, one person may say, yeah, this never happens. And then the other person will say, no, 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 it happens, you just haven't seen it. Sometimes it's a conflict that is pointless to try to resolve it just there with all these opposing opinions. So what I find that going back to the data, so putting this on the shelf and finding the data and discovering examples perhaps of one scenario or the other scenario then really help, because people are reasonable. When they're faced with data, perhaps there will be no more argument. So I have a question here. I see a lot of job descriptions asking for SQL and BI skills. So yeah, even though those are not necessarily the core skills of business analysis per se, a lot of business analysts today need to work with data closely, whether because they are working on new systems where the data and the data model needs to be designed, or perhaps because the solution they're working on has some business intelligence requirements, and then you as an analyst need to determine those. And sometimes business analysts are actually focused only on BI solutions or big data solutions. So I would say that definitely understanding the data management fundamentals, understanding what is analytics, what are different types of analytics, different types of reporting visualizations is very beneficial. You may not start with that, but as you proceed and as you become more confident in business analysis profession, definitely looking into the data side of things is very useful. If you know SQL, again, it's normally not a requirement, but if you know SQL and if you can run your own SQL queries, you're so much less dependent on other people if you need to do certain business analysis. I certainly used SQL queries in my job to help me validate business scenarios where I had those conflicts between stakeholders which disagreed what will happen or what has happened in the past and what has never happened in the past. So I see another comment. It's crucial to be able to escalate issues to collaborate. Yes, absolutely. So you have to escalate sometimes. You will get into situations of conflict, or you will get into situation where someone disagrees with a change or disagrees with proposed solution, perhaps at the solution design stage. And sometimes you have to escalate. Perhaps you need to work with a business sponsor uh, because there may be two opposing points of view from two business groups, and you can only go with one and not the other, and someone needs to resolve it. And maybe that's where you go back to the objectives and to the business value and ask, well, what were you trying to achieve and which of these options takes you there? Collaboration is very important, and ability to find ways to work with people. And you as analyst will be one of those people that need to get along with business and with technology, with people who are very detailed oriented and want everything to be just so and precise, and with people who just want to get their problems fixed but maybe don't care about details as much. You will always be in between. If you enjoy it, then you will enjoy being an analyst. Yes, so let's move on then. So let's talk a little bit about tools and technology. So I'm not going to cover them all here. This is more just a reminder of you that you are not just doing Word documents as an analyst. And I think by now most analysts don't just do that. There are many different requirement management tools that are now used. Jira is one example, Team Foundation Server, for example, for user stories and for backlog management. There's many collaboration tools, Teams, Slack, you name it. There is a lot of graphic design tools and diagramming tools. So Visio and Lucidchart are probably the most frequently used, but there are many others. There are wireframing tools. There is various ways of analyzing data. So perhaps you're using just Excel, or maybe you use MS SQL, or you may be using Tableau or anything else. So lots of tools, and in different organizations, you may have to just jump on and learn a new tool. But this is all your arsenal as a business analyst. It's not just about documents. So next, why don't we talk about where do business analysts work? Now, this little visual, I took it from IIB's salary survey. I think that's really handy. They surveyed a lot of business analysts, so you can see stats across the world. A lot of business analysts, of course, work in information technology, but look at all these other areas: finance, insurance, government, services, healthcare. So basically, analysts work everywhere. Everywhere where there is technology, everywhere where enterprises undergo changes, you need business analysis. So if you are a business analyst, or if you want to become one, it doesn't mean that you're going to limit yourself just to banking, for example. Yeah, banks are a big employer, but that's not it. Now, more on the same topic, if we talk about core responsibilities, and this is again based on the IIBA survey. So all of these respondents told in the survey what are their main responsibilities. And what I wanted to show you is that even though pretty much all of them, have some business analysis component in their role, but many of them are involved in project management as well. At least half of them are somehow involved in testing, almost half in training. Look at like 60% are involved in process development, which is fabulous, and the business analytics and architecture. So again, it reminds you again that A, there is a variety of responsibilities within this job, and then B, you will be learning a lot of skills, which means that you have a lot of options for your further career choices. There will be many job titles in this family. It's not necessarily a business analyst. You may be called systems analyst. You may be called product owner, business consultant, process analyst, many different, again, depending on the organization, many different titles. You always need to look into the job description to make sure that you actually understand whether this is a business analysis job. All right, so now what we want to talk about is whether is business analysis is for you. So I just want you to kind of just look at the screen and try to answer this question mentally. Do you like to solve problems? Do you like to figure out how things work? Do you like to explain, teach, simplify? Do you like to talk to people, find ways to get along with different personalities, learn about new technologies and concepts, see the results of your work? Do you like those things? Now, are you good at writing? Are you good at, oh, my keyboard got stuck. Are you good at creating simple pictures and getting your point across and listening, asking questions, standing your ground for what you believe in? Are you good at speaking in front of audiences and are comfortable presenting your ideas? So I think this is a good list of questions for you to think. Is this really for you, or help you to determine whether this is something that makes sense? So what did you think? By you answering yes to most of these questions, or maybe tell me in the chat what does this list tell you? Yes, no? Okay. All right. Yeah, for most of the points. Okay. Okay. I'm glad to hear that. Overwhelmingly, yes. Okay, Anne-Marie. All right. Okay. So, let's just. I just want to talk about business analyst mindset. This is what my book is about, and every chance I get, I want to mention it because to me, this is such an important concept. Is how you think, how you approach problems, how you don't give up, how you really try to go for the right solution. So this is your business analyst mindset. So what I've done is I've put it together as this visual with 12 main principles of the business analyst mindset. So I just wanted to share it with you today too. So when we talk about business analyst mindset, we always start with business goals. We always focus on solving the problem for business. And whenever there is a conflict or disagreement, you always think back to business goals and you calibrate all of these decisions to the goals. Is this going to solve the problem? Is this going to help business achieve its goal? You have to always try and solve the right problem and question everything. So as you're doing your analysis, you don't just take things on trust, you question it. You ask why. Why are you doing this? What are you trying to achieve? Tell me how it works. Explain to me why you don't like it, and so on. You question and question and question, and only that helps you to really discover the gaps. You lead and facilitate. So you always have to be directing the groups and helping them communicate and asking them questions and helping them to explain things and make these explanations easier. So this is really a big part of who you are. Again, even if you're not directly managing anyone, you're still a leader, a subtle leader. Number 5 is about doing analysis before you actually can put together requirements. So you're not gathering requirements. You can't, because requirements are not just there ready to be gathered. You need to analyze the problem. You need to analyze the process. You need to understand why things don't work the way they're supposed to. And only then you can really start to think about how this needs to change and what needs to change. And that's what I call synthesis. That's where you actually start to put together the requirements. And number 6 is uncovering gaps. So again, as you go through your analysis, you may discover something strange and weird and something that's not supposed to be there. It's part of your job to bring those gaps up and to help your stakeholders resolve them. Don't cover them up. Don't say, well, it's not in scope for me. Let someone else deal with it. Whatever gaps you find, if you don't deal with it, chances are it's gonna, spring up later and just destroy destroy the good spirit, or turn out to be a break in the solution, or turn out to be a big customer annoyance. So never cover the gaps. Always try to address them and discover them and understand them. You may not be able to solve all of them, but at least as you discover them, make sure that they get discussed. Okay. Number 7 is about simplifying. So I don't know if you have seen my recent post on LinkedIn. We talked about it in a previous webinar about process improvements, where you don't just automate processes. That's not going to work. If a business analyst is asked to work on requirements for automating the process, you always have to look at whether this process is optimal. Uh, can anything be simplified? Are there some superficial steps or something that is not necessary or something that doesn't make sense anymore, perhaps? And you have to simplify and streamline and order your processes first before you automate them. Taking responsibility for shared requirements. Again, this is where you need to be interested and you need to strive to make sure that everyone on the project agrees. It's not just about you putting something into user stories and being happy about it. Do all the others understand what you wrote? Do they agree with it? Is everyone has the same picture in their mind about what they're building? That's shared understanding of business requirements, and that's the real goal. Number 9, accept and embrace business change. Again, everybody heard of change requests, and project managers hate change requests. And once requirements are signed off, we don't always want to reopen them and change them. But change happens all the time, and current time is a perfect example where change is inevitable, it's unpredictable. Nobody predicted a global pandemic, so a lot of organizations have to change by reacting. There's no time to plan. So changes will happen, and you need to be ready to embrace them and deal with them and determine the best ways to incorporate those changes into requirements or the next sprint or the next iteration or the next phase. But don't just resist the change, because the change will happen anyway. Right? Being the part of the solution, this is where, as a business analyst, you don't stop when your requirements are done. And they're not your requirements, of course, they're business requirements. But you don't stop there. You become part of the solution. You are supporting the design. You're clarifying to the developers as they need clarification. You maybe are helping to develop the task plan, or review the scenarios, or you may be part of the test team. You'll be training, perhaps, or reviewing documentation, or helping with the change management communication. There's so many other activities where business analysts can help during the development and testing and implementation. And also, you will be seeing how the solution takes shape and then how it's implemented, what is the feedback from the users, and that helps you learn, well, did I get my requirements right? Was this correct? Was something missed? And it helps you learn, and it gives you that feedback loop for future. You always expect human behavior from human beings, because again, you're not just dealing with systems, you're not just dealing with the code. You are dealing with people who make processes, who make mistakes, the people who have biases, who have different ideas about what's right, and you deal with them every day. So you have to find the solutions to business problems while dealing with all these humans. And you are human yourself as well. So don't forget it, because things will never be straightforward. There will be always emotional issues, and the gut feels, the trust, the lack of trust, and the resistance, and all of these other typical normal expressions of the human personalities. And on top of all that, as a principle 12, learn, adapt, and thrive. So always keep learning new skills and new tools, and read books and exchange experiences with others. Adapt to how the world is changing, adapt to how your business is changing, and thrive in all of it. And hopefully, if you're choosing this path, it's because you like learning and because you like the change and you like adapting and you don't want to stay in one place. So this is really like an overview of a business analyst mindset. On my website, there is 12 articles, one for each of these principles. I'll add the link to my email when I send it after. But if you want now to put in the chat which of these 12 principles really like speaks to you most, or you think is one of the most important, or the one that you think you will really pay attention to, what really kind of stirred your feelings the most? Which one? So mine, I'll share mine. I mean, all of them obviously, but I keep coming back to number 8, taking responsibility for shared understanding of requirements. So this is, I think, something that we don't often think enough of, is that it's not just your requirements, it's requirements that everybody on the team needs to understand and agree. So the shared understanding is key. So I see other responses: solving the right problem and being part of the solution. Yes, absolutely. And then number 3, questioning everything. Why are we using certain process? Yes, why are we using this? Why are we doing it this way? Why do you think customers don't like it? Or why is this, why do you think this is missing? Why is this process not working? Always asking those questions really, really helps you to get that analysis done. Okay, so just more on the topic of business analysis mindset and the principle number 11, that is dealing with humans and human beings. I just wanted to remind you one more time, even though we talk about analysis and there is a lot of what we do that's linked to information technology, but above all, business analysis is a social activity where you need to interact with other people and will you collaborate all the time, and also you depend on other people, so you need to be able to have those relationships with them and get information from them and get their agreement. So a lot of what you do is collaboration, and it's social activity. So you need to be comfortable with it and you need to acknowledge it. Don't be annoyed with it because it is part of the job. All right. So here is just a little picture that will describe the circle of your interactions with other people. So there will be more, but some of these people will be your clients, the functional managers, your quality assurance lead, the architects, the business experts, the IT directors and managers, the developers that will be actually developing the solution, the sponsors, the engineers, and so on. So this is just a kind of a small view of all these different people that you may need to work with as a business analyst. And as part of your work, you will have different types of interactions with these different people, and you will have different deliverables for different people, and they will need different type of details and different type of format of information. So you will always be calibrating your communication based on who you're talking to, or who you're sending information to, or who you're getting the responses from. You're always interacting, meetings, leading groups of people, explaining, asking questions, speaking, resolving conflicts, etc., etc. So this is a big part of the job, and that's why it's also part of this webinar, because it's not only about information technology, and it shouldn't be. All right, so we get into the last part of our webinar. So if you like what you see, and if you want to become a business analyst, or perhaps you already are and you want to develop, what are the next steps in your journey? Where do you want to go? So it always depends from where you are. Where are you now? What's your experience? Are you already in business analysis job, or you want to get into one? Are you still a student? Do you have any training? Where do you want to go? Do you want to try it out, or do you want to enhance? So you're pretty sure that business analysis is what you want to do. And also in terms of the speed, how fast you want to go, how much time you have. There's many different steps that you can take. So some of those steps are here, and deliberately I'm starting with steps that are free or almost free, because there is a lot of things you can do without necessarily having to pay. Starting with attending free webinars, or checking out YouTube videos, or reading analysis blogs, articles, LinkedIn forums. There's many books on business analysis that have been published. On top of that, there are things that you can do to practice. You can practice your writing. Make sure you are able to write clearly and very in an accessible way that makes what you write easy to understand. You can learn different tools, such as business analysis tools, diagramming tools. For example, Lucid Chart has a free version where you can create a few diagrams directly on their website, and you can practice a lot of different types of diagrams there. You may review business analysis artifacts in your organization and learn from that. Shadow an experienced analyst. Check out always with your employer. They may have some training that's available for free, or they may give you a secondment to a project where you can try on a business analysis job if that's not what you do yet. There is more steps, such as taking online courses, joining one of the organizations, getting a certification, getting lots of books, maybe relevant postgraduate degrees if that's what you're interested in, and maybe other types of training, such as in Agile, Six Sigma, or business architecture. And also, you can hire a business analysis coach if you'd like some personalized mentoring based on specifically where you are today. So I've added some resources for you to start with or to continue. And as I send you this, this will be a PowerPoint. So each of this is a link. So you can click on each of these pictures and actually get there. I included my book and my website, Why Change. There's some other very good books. There's BABOK, Business Analysis Body of Knowledge. The websites of various organizations, other good blogs, and websites where you can search for example, modeling standards. So there are so many resources that are available that it's really up to you how much time you have and how much effort you want to put in to explore them. You do have some coaching options if you're interested. I do provide one-on-one coaching for business analysts in core skills development or to help you create your own business analysis portfolio, or perhaps for career coaching, such as preparing for an interview or making sure you have the right resume and getting ready for a hiring test. So if you're interested in that, let me know, get in touch with me through the email. So this slide is out of date because this webinar has already been done. I'm not sure whether I'll do one more. I'll see whether I have enough people who wanted to register. So, but on YouTube, there are recordings for my other webinars. So if you're interested, please sign up, subscribe to my YouTube channel. There is a link to it. I'll include the link for you into the deck. I'll also include it in my email. So this is really the webinar. This is the topic, is business analysis for me, and whether you whether this is something that you are interested in. And at this point, we can just chat, and I can answer your questions if you have any. But this is the end of it. Now, Anne-Marie is saying that she has some audio issues. Can others hear me? Can you type me in the chat whether you had problems with the sound? Can you hear me? Oh, good. Okay. All right. Okay, I'm glad. So Anne-Marie, I'll do the recording, but hopefully you can hear me better. So really, this is where we are at the end. I really appreciate your time and that you joined me. Do you have any questions? Would you like to type them in the chat, or if you'd like to unmute yourself and ask the questions, or perhaps you have some feedback or you would like to add something to what we discussed, then let me know. It was really great having you, so thank you very much for joining today.